Elena had hidden her baby growing inside her for 8 months with loose dresses, fake smiles, and a borrowed wedding ring. But when the truth finally came out, her father sent her to the one-man modern scandal itself feared. Magnus the keeper Steele. They said he collected women and none ever returned. Elena thought she was being punished. What she did not know was that the man who got her pregnant was already planning to make sure she disappeared for good. She leaned against the pantry wall, gripping the edge of the shelf to steady herself as a wave of nausea washed over her again. This time, it was not morning sickness. It was panic, the kind that starts low in the stomach and rises up hot and heavy until it grabs your throat. Elena, her father's voice boomed from the kitchen. What's taking so long with the bread? Just a minute, she called back, forcing cheer into her voice. She reached for the bread basket, her fingers trembling a little as they brushed the wooden handle. Her deep burgundy dress pulled tightly around her middle, the fabric no longer loose enough to hide the truth. 8 months. She had managed to fool them for 8 whole months. The town people believed she was just gaining weight, that the shop girl with the round cheeks and quiet love of books had become softer with time. Only her closest friend had once asked gently, "Elena, are you all right?" She had smiled, touched her fake wedding ring, and whispered, "I'm just tired." The banker's name was never spoken, never written, never confessed. Robert Whitmore, a man with perfect hair, gold cufflinks, and a hollow in his voice that sounded like love. She had been foolish, yes, but not mean. She had not known he was married. Not until it was too late, and by then her belly had already started to swell under her corsets and empire waist gowns. He had promised to leave his wife, promised to start over. Then his wife found out, and Robert vanished. The pain hit just before dusk. It was not the bee. Send her back, Sheriff. No, Daddy. Please send her back. The sheriff can't do that. Wyatt Cole stood on his porch, arms crossed, staring at the woman beside the sheriff's horse. She was large. There was no denying it. Her faded blue dress pulled tight at the seams. Her dark hair was cut short in a way that made her look even more unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. But it wasn't just her size that made his jaw tighten. "I won't have someone who set fires on my property," Wyatt said flatly. Elena Marsh flinched, but she didn't look away. She'd heard worse. She'd been called worse. Careless murderer. "Can't do that." Cole, Sheriff Brennan said, getting off his horse with a tired grunt. "Judge Morrison's orders. She stays here 2 weeks, helps teach the orphans, then we check again." "Check what again?" "Whether I want someone who burned her husband alive living under my roof." Elena's breath caught, but her chin stayed level. "Barely. The court hasn't proven anything," she said quietly. Wyatt's eyes looked over her, cold and not caring. "The court hasn't cleared you either." The words landed like stones. Elena's hands twisted together, her knuckles white. Sheriff Brennan stepped between them, his tone getting sharper. 2 weeks. She teaches reading to the local children in your barn. Helps with light work and stays out of your way. If there's trouble, I come back. If not, she moves on. Nothing about this is simple. Then make it simple. Be a decent man for 14 days. Wyatt's glare could have split stone, but the sheriff didn't blink. Finally, Wyatt pointed toward the barn. "She sleeps there. Eats after we do, and if I catch her near my daughter, you'll what?" The sheriff's voice dropped. "Throw a widow accused of a crime she didn't commit back into the street." Wyatt said nothing. His silence was answer enough. Elena picked up her small bag and walked toward the barn, her body heavy with tiredness and shame. She curled over her belly with a gasp. The door burst open. Elena, Her father, Samuel, rushed out, hands gripping her shoulders, pulling her up. "I'm fine," she muttered. "Just tripped." Her dress shifted. The water soaked through the fabric. And with it, the swell of her stomach became clear. The silence that followed was not shock. It was worse. It was understanding. The door slammed behind her. She sat at the edge of the bed, hands clutching the locket. At her throat, the one thing her mother had left her. It shook against her skin. Downstairs, her father paced. Voices whispered through the floorboards, angry, muffled, growing darker with every step. He did not ask who the father was. He did not need to. He already knew. And he knew that Robert Whitmore, respected banker and elder of the town council, would never claim her or the child. To do so would cost him everything. His good name, his money, his wife's family name. So Samuel did what he thought was the only choice. He called for the keeper. They say he stands a head taller than any man in town. Martha, the baker's wife, had whispered months ago. Keeps women locked up on that ranch of his out past the Black Hills. The ones who vanish, that's where they end up. Some say he's building an army of wives. Her friend Lillian had joked. Big enough to carry them all. Elena had laughed too back then, but now, standing barefoot on the cold wooden porch with a carpet bag in one hand and shame twisting in her throat, she saw the figure in the distance, tall, towering. The sun was dipping low, casting orange across the trees, and Magnus Steele stood like a shadow carved into the light. He wore a leather vest over a rolled white shirt, his arms thick with muscle, sleeves pushed high, enough to show the scar across his forearm. His dark blonde hair was tied back at the nape of his neck. A full beard covered his jaw, and his eyes were steel blue. They did not flicker, did not flinch, they studied her. She could feel Wyatt's eyes on her back, could hear the whispers that would follow her here, just like they'd followed her everywhere since the fire. Her husband's screams still woke her at night. The smell of burning wood. The way the townspeople had looked at her afterward, like she was a monster wearing a woman's skin. They said she'd been too slow to save him, too heavy to move fast enough, that she'd probably knocked over the lantern herself and couldn't run. She hadn't been charged. There wasn't enough evidence. But the accusation had been enough. Her teaching position gone. Her home sold to pay debts. Her life reduced to this. Inside the barn, the air smelled like hay and old leather. The small room in the back was little more than a storage space with a cot, a cracked mirror, and a single window. Elena set her bag down and sat on the edge of the cot, her hands trembling. A soft sound made her look up. A little girl stood in the doorway, half hidden by the frame. She couldn't have been more than 5 with dark curls and wide, serious eyes. "Hello," Elena said gently. The girl didn't respond. She just watched. "What's your name?" Silence. Elena tried a different way. "My name is Elena. I'm going to be teaching some children how to read. Do you like stories?" The little girl took one small step into the barn, then another. She stopped a few feet away, still staring. "You're the fire lady," the girl said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Elena's chest tightened. Even the children knew. "Yes." "Did you really burn your husband?" The question landed hard. Elena forced herself to meet those innocent eyes. "No, sweetheart. I didn't." "Then why do people say you did?" "Because sometimes people believe the worst about others when they don't understand what really happened." The girl tilted her head thinking, "You walked all the way from town. That's far." Elena looked up surprised. "And you're not mean." She had never felt so small in her life. Samuel grunted and gave her a firm shove forward. This is what you've brought on yourself, he said coldly. Go. Elena's boots crunched against the gravel path. The air smelled like dust and pine. Her dress clung to her thighs in the heat. Her heartbeat roared louder than her footsteps. Magnus did not speak. He waited. And when she finally stopped 3 feet away, tilting her head upward to meet his eyes, she said the only thing she could think of. I won't cause trouble. He looked at her belly, the worn boots, the gold band that gleamed faintly in the dusk. You already have, he replied. Then he turned and walked away without waiting to see if she followed. The wagon ride was silent. The horses moved steady along the mountain trail, and Magnus sat beside her like a statue carved from stone. His gloved hands rested on his knees. Not once did he look her way. Elena tried not to cry. She held her bag tight, her other hand resting over her belly. The baby moved inside. You're not what I expected, she said finally, her voice barely above the sound of hooves. I never am, he replied. The ranch came into view just as night fell. A wide stretch of land wrapped in fog, with lanterns flickering across the porch of a large timber house. The barn stood tall behind it, and to the side a garden, tidy, lush, cared for. There were shadows on the porch, figures. Women watching, waiting. As the wagon stopped, Elena's heart began to race. She stepped down onto the gravel, almost stumbling again. But before she could steady herself, a deep voice spoke from behind her. Don't wear the ring. She turned. Magnus had stepped closer than she realized. His shadow fell across hers. Why not? She whispered. He did not answer. Instead, he reached forward. Slow, careful, and slid the fake wedding ring off her finger. His steel blue eyes held hers. You won't need to lie anymore. Mean people have mean faces. You don't. For the first time in months, something warm flickered in Elena's chest. Thank you, she whispered. The girl turned and walked back toward the house, her small footsteps fading. Elena sat alone in the dim barn and pressed her hands to her face. Just 2 weeks. She could survive 2 weeks. Outside, Wyatt watched from the porch as his daughter, Lahi, climbed the steps. She looked up at him with those serious eyes. She's sad, Papa. Go inside, Lahi. But she's really sad. I could see it. Wyatt's jaw tightened inside now. Lahi obeyed, but as she passed him, she said softly, You were mean to her. The door closed and Wyatt stood alone on the porch staring at the barn. He told himself he didn't care. Told himself this woman was a stranger, a burden, a problem that would be gone in 2 weeks. But his daughter's words lingered, small and sharp, like a splinter he couldn't pull free. The children arrived at dawn. 9 of them, ranging from age 5 to 12, most orphans from the war or children of ranch hands too busy to teach them. Elena stood in the barn's open doorway, watching them come in with curious, weary eyes. She'd set up simple benches from old crates and cleared a space near the window where light poured in. On a board propped against the wall, she'd written the alphabet in careful chalk letters. Good morning, she said softly. My name is Miss Elena. I'm here to teach you reading, writing, and maybe a few other things along the way. A boy in the back whispered to his neighbor loud enough for everyone to hear. That's the lady who killed her husband. Elena's hand stilled on the chalk. She turned slowly, meeting the boy's eyes. My husband died in a fire. I did not kill him, but I understand why you might have heard that. My ma says you were too fat to save him. A girl in the front said, her tone more curious than cruel. She says you probably couldn't run fast enough. Elena stared at the gold ring in his hand. It looked so small now, like the lie it always was. Magnus did not throw it away. He just held it between 2 fingers for a moment, then slipped it into his vest pocket without another word. "Come inside," he said. She followed him up the creaking porch stairs, past the women who stood in the shadows. No one smiled, but none of them looked afraid either. Their eyes held something Elena could not name. Maybe peace. Maybe warning. Inside the house was clean, warm, and dimly lit. The smell of wood, smoke and lavender came from the hearth. Books lined the shelves. The walls were paneled with knotty pine. A woven blanket hung beside a crucifix, half hidden behind a curtain of trailing ivy. This was not a prison, but it was not home either. Magnus led her to a room at the end of the hall and pushed the door open. "You'll sleep here. Bed's clean. Window opens if it gets too warm." Elena blinked. The room had a small desk, a rocking chair, and a real bed. Real sheets, not straw. A folded nightgown rested on the pillow. "Someone will bring food. Eat, sleep, we'll talk in the morning." And with that, he left, shutting the door quietly behind him. Elena stood there for a long time, not moving. She had not cried when her father called her shameful. She had not cried when the banker stopped writing. But now in this room that smelled like pine and quiet, she pressed her hand to her belly and whispered, "We're not going to die." Then she cried. Morning came with birds singing and the sound of boots on floorboards. A knock came at the door, and before Elena could answer, it opened. A tall, dark-haired woman stepped inside with a tray of food. Eggs, bread, and warm milk. She wore a linen dress, faded but neat, and carried herself like someone who had once walked through fire and lived. "Elena." "Right," she said. "I'm Beth. I live down the hall." Elena nodded, brushing her braid over one shoulder. "Thank you for the food." The other children shifted uncomfortably. Elena's face burned, but she kept her voice steady. "Your mother wasn't there. Neither was anyone else, so no one knows what really happened except me." "Then what did happen?" The girl pressed. Elena set the chalk down and knelt. So, she was level with the children. Sometimes bad things happen and people want someone to blame. It makes them feel safer. But blaming someone doesn't always mean they did it. The children stared at her thinking. "So, you're innocent?" Another asked. "Yes." "Then why are you here and not at home?" Elena's throat tightened. "Because even innocent people can lose everything." The barn went quiet. The children exchanged glances and something in their faces softened. Over the next days, Elena taught them letters and numbers. But she also taught them outside under the cottonwood tree, where she showed them how birds built nests and how to identify animal tracks. She answered every question, no matter how small. And Lahi was always there, silent, watchful, but always there. One afternoon, Elena was carrying water from the well when one of the ranch hands, a man named Dutch, stepped into her path. He was broad-shouldered and smirking. "Heard you're teaching the little ones," he said lazily. "That's real sweet. You teaching them how to waddle, too?" The other hands laughed. Elena's stomach twisted, but she kept walking. Dutch sidestepped, blocking her again. "I'm talking to you, sweetheart, though." "I guess sweetheart ain't the right word. Maybe sweet cake. You look like you've had plenty of those." More laughter. Elena's grip tightened on the bucket. "Excuse me. Touchy. Guess that's what happens when you're fat and a killer." Elena's hand shook. She looked him dead in the eye. "My husband burned to death while I tried to pull him out. I have scars on my hands to prove it. You want to make jokes about that?" Dutch smirk faltered. Before he could respond, a voice cut through the air like a whip. "Dutch." Beth set the tray on the desk. Don't thank me. It was Sarah's turn to cook, but she burned the eggs. I'm the backup. Despite herself, Elena smiled a little. Beth did not leave. She leaned against the wall, arms folded. I know what you're thinking. That this place is too clean, too quiet, too strange. Elena nodded again. It's not a trap, Beth said. It's real, but it takes time to believe it. Why are you here? Elena asked, her voice soft. Beth stopped for a moment. I left my husband. He did not. Like when I spoke in public or had ideas. Or breathed too loudly. Elena's chest tightened. I found Magnus by accident. He let me stay. That was 4 years ago. Beth's voice softened. You'll be all right. We all are. Eventually. Then she added, eat your eggs before Sarah sees you did not finish. She takes it personally. Later, Magnus found her in the garden. Barefoot, her dress brushing over wet grass. She did not hear him come near, but when she turned, she was not scared. You came out, he said. I needed air. He pointed toward a row of benches near the wildflower beds. Sit if you can. They sat in silence for a moment before he asked, why the ring? So people would stop asking questions. Did not work, did it? No. A breeze moved her braid. Magnus watched her carefully, his gloved hands resting on his knees. You hid for 8 months. That's not just fear. That's strong will. Elena met his eyes for the first time since arriving. I did not want to lose the baby. The banker, he made promises. When I told him, he panicked, said he would come back for me, but he did not. Magnus's jaw tightened. And your father found out during a false pain, said I had shamed him. Said. This, she pointed to her belly, was a stain on his name. And so he gave you away like property, Magnus muttered. Elena did not answer. She did not need to. That afternoon, Elena met the others. Marie was the first to speak, small, sharp-faced with quiet eyes and a dry sense of humor. Wyatt stood 10 feet away, his eyes cold and flat. Get back to work. Dutch raised his hands in mock surrender. Just making conversation, boss. Now, Dutch walked off, muttering. Wyatt turned to Elena, his expression unreadable. You all right? Elena blinked, startled. I'm fine. He looked like he wanted to say something else, but instead he just nodded and walked away. That evening, Wyatt sat on his porch, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. He could hear Elena's voice drifting from the barn, soft and steady, reading to the children who'd stayed late. Lahi was with them. She'd asked to stay after supper, something she never did. Lahi came running up the steps an hour later, her face flushed with excitement. Papa, Miss Elena knows so many stories. She told us about a queen who fought a dragon. Wyatt managed a faint smile. That's so. And she said, tomorrow we're going to learn about the stars. Lahi climbed into his lap, something she rarely did anymore. I like her, Papa. Wyatt's chest tightened. Don't get too attached, Lahi. She's only here 2 weeks. Why? Because that's the deal. Lahi frowned. That's not fair. She's nice and she's sad. Doesn't she deserve to stay somewhere she's wanted? Wyatt had no answer. Later, after Lahi was asleep, he walked to the barn. Through the window, he saw Elena sitting on the edge of her cot, her head in her hands, shoulders shaking. She was crying, trying to muffle the sound. Wyatt stood in the shadows, something uncomfortable twisting in his chest. He thought about Dutch's words, about the way Elena had stood her ground. He thought about the scars she'd mentioned. He turned and walked back to the house, but sleep didn't come easy because for the first time since she'd arrived, he wondered if he'd been wrong about her. Lahi started following Elena everywhere. At first, it was subtle. She'd linger after lessons, helping stack books or sweep the barn floor. I was thrown out for not being able to have children, she said. So I ended up in the one place full of women who did not want men deciding their worth. Sarah, a tall, broad-shouldered woman with soft curls, gave Elena a glass of berry tea and said only, "He never turns away someone who wants to stay." Beth leaned in and whispered, "Sarah used to be promised to a man 20 years older than her. She ran away in her wedding dress. Still has it. Hangs it in the barn to scare the crows." The women laughed, and for the first time, Elena did not feel like she was just getting by. She felt seen. Days passed. Elena spent mornings in the garden, afternoons drawing in the sun. Magnus spoke only when needed, but when he did, it was straight, clear, steady. He never asked about the baby, but sometimes when she walked past, she saw him watching, not with judgment, but with something she could not name. Not pity, not interest, respect. It made her uneasy. One evening, she stepped out of the bathhouse to find him waiting outside with a lantern. "You walk slower at night," he said. "I thought you would need light." She tilted her head. "Are you always this watchful?" His mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Only when it matters." On the 7th night, thunder rolled in the distance. Elena could not sleep. She slipped out to the porch, locket shining at her throat, and sat in the rocking chair. Magnus stood at the edge of the field, coat over his shoulders, staring toward the tree line. "Can't sleep," she called. "Me neither," he said quietly. "Someone came asking today." Elena's breath caught. Her hand went to her belly. "Did they say a name?" "No." "Then it's him." Still facing the trees, Magnus spoke. Like steel grinding on stone. He wanted to know if a girl in a red dress came this way. Elena stood. Her legs shook. "I told him I keep no one here against their will," Magnus said, "and that any man who crossed my land without an invitation would pay for it." She stepped forward. Then she'd appear at the well when Elena drew water, or by the garden when Elena weeded vegetables no one had asked her to tend. Elena never sent her away. She simply let the child exist beside her, asking nothing, offering quiet companionship. One afternoon, Elena found Lahi crouched by the fence, drawing in the dirt with a stick. She knelt beside her, careful not to disturb the work. "What are you making?" Lahi didn't look up. "A picture." "May I see?" Lahi nodded. The drawing was simple but clear. Two figures holding hands, one tall, one small. "That's beautiful." "Who are they?" Lahi finally looked up. "You and me." Elena's breath caught. "Why did you draw us?" "Because you make me feel safe." Lahi tilted her head like my mama used to. Elena's vision blurred. She reached out slowly, brushing a curl from Lahi's face. "Your mama must have been wonderful." "I don't remember her much. Papa says she was pretty and kind." Lahi paused. "I think you're kind, too." Elena couldn't speak. She just nodded, blinking hard. That evening, Lahi asked a question that made Elena's heart stop. "Miss Elena, why are you bigger than other ladies?" They were sitting by the creek, Lahi picking wild flowers while Elena mended a torn primer. The question came so innocently, so without malice, that Elena almost smiled. "I just am, sweetheart. People come in all shapes and sizes. Papa says you eat too much." Elena's hand stilled. "He said that not to me. I heard him talking to the sheriff." Lahi looked up, her brow furrowed. But I don't think that's true. You barely eat anything. I've seen you give your bread to the dog. Elena's throat closed. She set down the primer and pulled Lahi into her lap. Sometimes, she said carefully, people say things when they're angry or scared. Your papa doesn't know me very well yet, so he says things that aren't true. Does it make you sad? Yes. Lahi wrapped her small arms around Elena's neck. I'm sorry people are mean to you. He'll come back. I know. What? Will you do this time? He turned. His eyes, those stormy steel eyes, locked with hers. I'll be waiting. Rain hit the roof in the middle of the night. The storm had finally come, shaking the ranch house like a warning. Elena could not sleep. Not after what Magnus said. He wanted to know if a girl in a red dress came this way. Robert had found her trail, or at least enough to knock on the wrong door. She sat on the edge of her bed, locket clutched tight in her fist. Her heartbeat felt louder than the thunder. Every time the baby moved inside her, she pressed her palm gently to her belly, whispering promises she was not sure she could keep. The next morning, the sun came back, but it did not bring peace. At breakfast, Sarah chopped vegetables with a bit too much force. Marie was not humming like she usually did. Even Beth, who could talk her way through fire, was quiet. They had all heard. Magnus was already outside working in the stables with the sleeves of his shirt rolled high, gloves on, sweat cutting lines down his temples. Elena stood at the edge of the barn, watching him lift a barrel twice her size like it weighed nothing. She walked up slowly. You did not tell them. They guessed. What happens now? He leaned against the stall gate and looked at her, eyes serious but steady. He'll come back. He was not done talking. Men like him do not stop unless they are stopped. You do not even know his name. I know the type. Elena's throat tightened. If he tells people I'm here, they will not listen, Magnus said. They have already chosen their side. And if he brings trouble, Magnus paused, then took off one glove, showing the scarred skin under it. He held the glove loosely, looking at it like it was a memory. I'm not the man I used to be, but I'm still strong enough to protect what's mine. She blinked. I'm not yours. His eyes went to her belly. No, but he does not know that. Elena held her close, her tears falling silently into the child's hair. Later, Wyatt found them by the creek. Lahi had fallen asleep in Elena's lap, her head resting against Elena's shoulder while Elena hummed a soft lullaby. The last light of day filtered through the cottonwood branches. Wyatt stopped, his chest tightening. Lahi hadn't let anyone hold her like that since her mother died. Elena looked up and saw him. She went still. She fell asleep. Elena whispered, I didn't want to wake her. Wyatt walked closer and knelt carefully, lifting Lahi into his arms. She stirred but didn't wake. Thank you, he said quietly. Elena stood brushing dirt from her skirt. She's easy to care for. Wyatt looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time he saw past the accusations, past the sighs, past everything the town had said. He saw a woman who was gentle with his daughter, who taught with patience, who carried the weight of the world without breaking. You're good with her, he said. She's a sweet child. She hasn't smiled this much since her mother died. Elena's eyes softened. She misses her. I know. Wyatt shifted Lahi in his arms. I've tried to be enough for her, but I don't know how to be both parents. You're doing better than you think. He met her gaze, something unspoken passing between them. Then he turned and carried Lahi toward the house. Elena watched them go, her heart aching. The next day, Wyatt went into town for supplies. At the general store, he overheard two women talking. I heard he's keeping that woman on his ranch. The fat one who killed her husband. Can you imagine? With his poor daughter there. She'll probably eat everything in sight and burn the house down. Wyatt's jaw clenched. He turned to face them. Her name is Elena Marsh. And she didn't kill anyone. The women looked startled. The whole town knows. The whole town knows rumors. There's a difference. Are you defending her? I'm telling you to mind your business. And suddenly, that felt more scary than comforting. 3 days passed. Elena painted in the workshop Magnus had turned into an art room, one of the few ways she could still feel like herself. The other women posed for her between chores, letting her draw their faces in charcoal or soft watercolors. She was painting. Marie's eyes when Beth burst through the door. Elena, she said, out of breath. Someone's coming. Elena dropped the brush. The women gathered at the front of the house as a shiny black carriage rolled up the gravel road, its wheels too clean for real travel. A man stepped out, tall, thin, dressed in an expensive coat and shiny boots. Robert Whitmore, even from across the field, Elena knew it was him. Her heart stopped. He had not changed. Still neat, still golden hair and charming when he smiled. Only this time, it did not reach his eyes. Magnus stepped outside. Elena followed. You must be Magnus Steele, Robert called, waving like an old friend. Magnus did not wave back. Robert's eye slid over the porch. He spotted her. His face lit up with fake warmth. Elena, thank God. I've been looking everywhere. She stayed behind Magnus, one hand gripping the post, the other covering her belly to protect it. You found her, Magnus said. Now leave. Robert laughed. She's not a prisoner, is she? She's not yours either. Elena, Robert said gently, voice dropping as if they were alone. I know. You're scared. I know things ended badly, but I've come to make it right. She stepped forward slowly, eyes locked on his. You lied to me, she said, voice shaking. You let me believe there would be a future. I had to protect my family. And now you're here. Why? Robert's mask broke just a little. Because if people see that baby, they'll know. And there it was. Not love, not guilt. Fear. I'll take care of it all, he went on fast. A home, a quiet place. Secret. You mean hide me, she said coldly. Like trash. He paid for his supplies and left, his anger simmering. That night, he found the drawing Lahi had made tucked under her pillow. He stared at it for a long time. Then he walked to the barn and knocked softly. Elena appeared, her expression cautious. I owe you an apology, Wyatt said. Elena blinked. For what? For the way I've treated you. For believing the worst without asking questions. For saying cruel things about your body when I had no right. Elena's eyes shimmered. You were protecting your daughter. I was protecting my anger. His voice was rough. I lost my wife and I've been holding on to that grief like a weapon. I used it against you. That wasn't fair. I understand grief, Mr. Cole. It makes us do things we regret. Wyatt, just Wyatt. She nodded slowly. All right, Wyatt. He wanted to say more, but the words tangled. Instead, he just nodded and walked away. Elena stood in the doorway, her hand pressed to her heart, whispering, maybe the world isn't as cruel as I thought. The town council came on a Thursday. 3 men in dark suits, led by Councilman Grayson, a man whose thin smile never reached his eyes. They rode up in a black carriage, wheels crunching on gravel. Wyatt met them at the porch. What's this about? "We're here to speak with Miss Marsh," Grayson said smoothly. "Questions regarding the fire." The judge already cleared her to be here. The judge allowed temporary placement. "We're ensuring community safety." Grayson's smile sharpened. A woman of her size and her history teaching children in a barn full of hay. "Surely you understand our concern." Wyatt's jaw tightened. Before he could respond, Elena appeared from the barn, flanked by children who'd stayed for lessons. "I'll answer your questions," she said quietly. Grayson gestured to the open yard. "Let's speak here where everyone can hear." A crowd was forming. Ranch hands, neighbors, women from town. Elena's stomach twisted, but she walked forward. Grayson pulled out a small notebook. "Better than what? Happens if my wife finds out. Or the bank. Or your father-in-law," she added. His jaw tightened. Magnus spoke again, low and calm. "You're not taking her anywhere. She's carrying my child. She's standing on her own 2 feet. That's all that matters." Robert stepped closer, dropping the act. "You think you can keep this whole safe place thing? It's against the law. You are hiding women, wives, daughters. You're in the way." "No," Magnus said. "I'm protecting them. Something you clearly do not understand." Robert's face turned red. "You think this place will last when the law hears about it? You won't get that far." Silence. Then Robert looked past Magnus, straight at Elena. His voice softened. "You think this giant will keep you safe? What happens when he gets tired of playing hero?" "I'm not afraid of him," she said. "No," Robert whispered. "You're afraid of me. That's why you ran." Magnus stepped forward once. Just once, and the gravel cracked under his boot. "You should leave," he said. Robert looked between them, then smiled. "This is not over." That night, Elena sat at the kitchen table while Magnus poured tea into mismatched mugs. His movements were slow, thoughtful. His gloves were off. His sleeves rolled high. She could see the rough scars curling across his forearms like stories no one had ever told out loud. "He'll come back," she said. Magnus nodded. "He might try harder next time. And you?" He put the mug in front of her. "I'll still be here." She sipped the tea. It tasted of sage and honey. "What were you?" she asked. "Before this?" He stared into his own cup for a long moment. "A preacher," he said at last, "a long time ago." Her eyes got wide. "What happened?" He looked up, and for the first time since she met him, his face softened. "Just a little. Faith broke," he said. "But I kept what mattered." They sat in silence, warm and quiet. Then, without thinking, Elena reached across the table and touched his scarred hand. "Miss Marsh, on the night of the fire, where were you?" "In the kitchen, preparing supper." "And your husband in the barn repairing a wagon wheel. How convenient that you were inside while he burned." Elena's breath hitched. "It wasn't convenient. It was a nightmare. Witnesses say you couldn't have reached him in time, even if you tried. That you were too slow." A woman in the crowd called out, "Too fat, you mean?" Laughter rippled through the air. Grayson's smile widened. "Miss Marsh, isn't it true that your physical condition would have made rescue difficult?" Elena's hands trembled. "Tried, I have burns on my arms to prove it." Or perhaps those burns came from starting the fire. The crowd murmured, the sound growing uglier. "Did you argue with your husband that day?" Grayson pressed. "No. Witnesses say they heard shouting." "Then they're mistaken." So everyone's lying except you. I didn't say that. A man shouted. She's got an answer for everything. Another voice. Guilty people always do. Elena's vision blurred. She opened her mouth, but her voice caught. Then a small voice cut through the noise. Stop it. Everyone turned. Lahi stood at the edge of the crowd, her small fists clenched. Lahi, Wyatt started. You're being mean to Miss Elena. Lahi's voice cracked. She didn't hurt anyone. She's nice. She teaches us and she doesn't yell even when we make mistakes. Grayson's face hardened. Child, you don't understand. I understand you're being a bully, Lahi shouted. My mama taught me bullies are cowards. Are you a coward, Mr. Grayson? Gasps rippled through the crowd. Before anyone could respond, another child stepped forward. Then another. Soon, all 9 children stood between Elena and the council. Miss Elena is good, one boy said. She's the best teacher we ever had. Why are you being so mean? Grayson's composure cracked. This is absurd. They understand kindness, Wyatt said, his voice cutting through like steel. He stepped forward. And they understand cruelty. You're not like anyone I've ever known. He did not pull away. And something passed between them, like a heavy load shared and made lighter. But just as comfort began to grow, a window broke upstairs. A scream followed. Beth's voice. Elena jumped to her feet. Magnus was already moving. Elena, stay here. But she did not listen. She followed the sound of breaking glass and heavy steps to the top of the stairs. What she saw froze her in place. Beth stood in her room, pale and shaking, pointing at a shadow slipping through the broken window. On the floor, a silver cuff link. Elena's breath caught. Robert had been inside the house. The silver cuff link shone under the moonlight like a threat left behind. Elena stared at it on the wooden floor, breath stuck in her chest. Robert's initials were carved into it. RW, no doubt, no mistake. He had been inside the safe place. Magnus picked up the cuff link in one large hand. Jaw clenched so tight the muscle in his cheek moved. I locked that window an hour ago, Beth whispered. He must have used the garden trellis. Which means he knows the layout now, Magnus muttered. He's watching us, testing how far he can go. The women gathered in the hall, in night clothes and barefoot, whispering in scared voices. Marie's voice shook. Is it safe here anymore? Magnus did not answer right away. Instead, he turned to Elena. You saw how far he'll go, he said. This is not about you anymore. It's about control. Elena's hands were shaking. She pressed them against her belly to steady herself. He does not care about the baby. He just wants to hide the truth. Magnus nodded once. Then we stop him first with quiet, with strength. She looked at him sharply. What does that mean? It means I do not wait for trouble to walk in my door. I go to it. By morning, the trellis had been taken down. The windows double-locked. Beth put a bell on the porch. Marie sharpened kitchen knives with shaking hands, and Magnus left. Miss Marsh, on the night of the fire, where were you? In the kitchen, preparing supper. And your husband in the barn repairing a wagon wheel. How convenient that you were inside while he burned. Elena's breath hitched. It wasn't convenient. It was a nightmare. Witnesses say you couldn't have reached him in time, even if you tried. That you were too slow. A woman in the crowd called out, too fat, you mean? Laughter rippled through the air. Grayson's smile widened. Miss Marsh, isn't it true that your physical condition would have made rescue difficult? Elena's hands trembled. Tried, I have burns on my arms to prove it. Or perhaps those burns came from starting the fire. The crowd murmured, the sound growing uglier. Did you argue with your husband that day? Grayson pressed. No. Witnesses say they heard shouting. Then they're mistaken. So everyone's lying except you. I didn't say that. A man shouted. She's got an answer for everything. Another voice. Guilty people always do. Elena's vision blurred. She opened her mouth, but her voice caught. Then a small voice cut through the noise. Stop it. Everyone turned. Lahi stood at the edge of the crowd, her small fists clenched. Lahi, Wyatt started. You're being mean to Miss Elena. Lahi's voice cracked. She didn't hurt anyone. She's nice. She teaches us and she doesn't yell even when we make mistakes. Grayson's face hardened. Child, you don't understand. I understand you're being a bully, Lahi shouted. My mama taught me bullies are cowards. Are you a coward, Mr. Grayson? Gasps rippled through the crowd. Before anyone could respond, another child stepped forward. Then another. Soon, all 9 children stood between Elena and the council. Miss Elena is good, one boy said. She's the best teacher we ever had. Why are you being so mean? Grayson's composure cracked. This is absurd. They understand kindness, Wyatt said, his voice cutting through like steel. He stepped forward. And they understand cruelty. He went. Before dawn with nothing but a coat, a bag of supplies, and a loaded rifle over his back. He's going into town, Sarah said. He won't start trouble. Not unless Robert does first. Elena sat in the garden, locket held tight between her fingers, hoping the baby would not come early. Her body hurt with tension, her ankles swollen, her thoughts louder than her breath. He left to keep her safe, but she had learned something in her time here. Safety was not the same as being quiet. Magnus reached the edge of town just after noon. The banker's office was painted blue now, trimmed in white, fresh, proud, a sign of everything Robert Whitmore was trying to keep. His name was stamped across the front window. In gold leaf. Magnus did not knock. He walked in. Robert looked up from his desk and for a moment something like fear crossed his face. Mr. Steele, he said smoothly, standing. This is a surprise. I doubt that. Robert pointed to the chairs. You've come to talk. I hope. I've come to warn you. Robert's smile faded. I do not like threats. This is not a threat. It's a line. One you already crossed. He put the cufflink on Robert's desk. Robert stared at it. You're not going to the sheriff with that, he said. Voice suddenly cold. No need, Magnus said. I'm not interested in laws that only help powerful men. I'm interested in keeping Elena safe. Robert sighed. Leaned back. Let me tell you something, Keeper. You're not the only one who knows how to use lies. The moment people hear that you're hiding unwed mothers, hurt wives, and runaways, this holy little place of yours will end. Not from fighting, from shame. Magnus did not blink. She does not want you. She never did. She's confused, Robert snapped. She's young. She's braver than you'll ever be, Magnus said quietly. And then with calm finality. If you come near her again, I won't call the sheriff. I won't raise my voice. I'll bury you in ground no one visits. So do I, Mr. Cole, surely you don't believe. I believe you came here to humiliate a woman who's done nothing but help. I believe you're more interested in gossip than truth. And I believe it's time for you to leave my property. Grayson's face darkened. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was letting you through my gate. Now get out. The councilmen climbed back into their carriage. As they drove away, the crowd slowly dispersed. Elena stood frozen, tears streaming. The children surrounded her, their small hands reaching for hers. Lahi pushed through and wrapped her arms around Elena's waist. Don't cry, Miss Elena. We won't let them hurt you. Elena knelt and pulled her close. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. Wyatt watched something fierce burning in his chest. He defended her, and he meant every word. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay on the cot in the barn, staring at the ceiling, her body trembling from the day's humiliation. The councilman's words echoed, the laughter, the way they'd looked at her like she was something scraped off their boots. Then she remembered Lahi's voice, the children's faces. Wyatt's defense. A soft knock startled her. Miss Elena, Lahi whispered. Are you awake? Elena sat up. Lahi, it's late. What are you doing out here? The door creaked and Lahi slipped inside, barefoot, nightgown stained with tears. I had a bad dream, she whispered. Elena opened her arms and Lahi climbed onto the cot, burrowing into her lap. What did you dream about, sweetheart? That you left, that you went away and never came back like Mama. Elena held her tighter, tears falling silently. I'm still here. But what if they make you go? What if those mean men take you away? I heard Papa talking to the sheriff. He said, your time is almost up. A few more days. Lahi's small face was fierce. I don't want you to go. You're not bad. You're good. I love you. Elena cupped her face in her scarred hands. I love you too so much. Robert did not speak. Magnus turned and walked out, his boots heavy against the polished floor. Back at the safe place, Elena was walking back and forth. The pains had started. Not sharp, not too bad. But steady, regular, known. Sarah sat beside her in the rocking chair, watching her belly with quiet worry. You sure this is not just worry? I do not. No, Elena whispered. Everything feels tight. It hurts when I move. Early. Labor, maybe. Or false again. Beth was already boiling water, but Elena's thoughts were not on pains or breathing ways. They were on Magnus. She hated that he had to go out and fight for her safety. Hated that a man like Robert could still make her feel like a secret to be erased. I'm not hiding anymore, she said out loud. Marie looked up. What? Elena stood from the chair, holding her side, steadying herself. I wore that ring too. Liv, but it's gone now. He wants me to disappear. She pointed to her growing belly. Let him try. Magnus came back that evening, hair wild. From wind and mud splashed, his coat dragging dust behind him. The moment he stepped inside, he found Elena waiting. He stopped. You're pale, he said. Ah. You? It started. His eyes narrowed. Pains. Steady. Not close yet. He nodded once. Then we have time. She stepped forward. You did not have to fight for me. Yes, he said. I did. But I'm not yours to protect. No, he whispered. But I want to be. Her breath caught. Not because you need saving, he added. Because you never asked for it. Because you kept yourself safe for 8 months while the whole world tried to erase you. I've seen soldiers with less strength. I was just scared, she whispered. That's not weak. That's living. A long pause. Then she said very softly, Will you stay with me when it's time? I'll be right outside that door, he said. Unless you want me inside. I do. He stopped. Then. I'll be there. The pains came harder that night. Then why do you have to leave? Sometimes rules don't care about love. That's not fair. No, it isn't. They sat in silence. Then Lahi asked softly, Miss Elena, were you scared when the fire happened? Elena's breath caught. No one had asked her that. Yes, she whispered. I was terrified. What did it feel like? Elena closed her eyes. Splintering wood. It felt like the world was ending. I ran toward the barn, but the heat knocked me back. I tried again and again. I could hear Thomas shouting, but I couldn't reach him. My dress caught fire. My hands burned on the door, but it wouldn't open. I tried, Lahi. I tried so hard, but I couldn't save him. When the townspeople came and pulled me away, all I could think, I should have died instead of him. Lahi cried. That's so sad. But it wasn't your fault, Elena said. How do you know? Because if you'd wanted him to die, you wouldn't have burned your hands trying to save him. Bad people don't cry about hurting others. They just don't care. Elena stared at the small, wise child and felt something inside her crack. You're right, she whispered. Absolutely right. Can I sleep here tonight with you? What about your papa? He's asleep. I checked. Elena hesitated, then lay down, pulling the thin blanket over them. Lahi curled against her, clutching her nightgown. Miss Elena? Yes. Even if you have to leave, I'll remember you forever. Elena's tears fell. And I'll remember you, sweet girl. You gave me something I thought I'd lost. What? Hope. Lahi yawned. Good. Because you gave me something, too. What's that? A mama. Within minutes, Lahi was asleep, breathing soft and even. Elena held her close, staring at the ceiling. Not thinking about the councilman, the crowd, or the accusations. She thought about a little girl who had chosen to love her when the world had chosen hate and a man who had stood in front of that crowd to defend her. Somewhere in the house, Wyatt watched from the window, listening. Every word, every confession, every comfort. Beth and Sarah stayed with her while Marie got towels and boiling water. The house fell into a quiet rhythm, on purpose, focused. Outside, Magnus walked the porch like a storm cloud in boots, his gloves held tight in one fist, silver chain shining around his neck. Inside, Elena cried out, gripping the edge of the bed. Beth wiped her forehead gently. You're doing it, girl. You're doing it. The room smelled of sweat, water, and lavender. And then a knock. Not on the bedroom door. On the front door. Beth froze. Marie's voice called from the hall. Magnus. His boots hit hard. Across the porch. Elena blinked through pain and sweat. Don't open it, she breathed, but it was already too late. Magnus opened the front door and standing there soaked in rain was Robert Whitmore. In one hand, a folded letter, in the other, a gun. The gun shone under the porch light. Rain dripped off Robert Whitmore's coat. His face, once carefully calm, was bare now, wild with anger, need, and the clear fear of a man with too much to lose. Magnus did not move. Step aside, Robert, yelled, voice over the wind. I'm not here to talk anymore. The big man's voice stayed low. Then you made a mistake coming here. Inside, Elena tried to sit up, sweat on her forehead, pain tight around her back like a belt. Beth ran to the door frame, blocking her. Don't move. He'll handle it. Elena shook her head. No, I won't hide again. Outside, Magnus moved slowly, body ready like a trap. Robert raised the gun. Just a little. You don't understand. She could ruin me. You don't know how. Fast good names die in a place like this. I know how fast women do. When men like you get away with it, Magnus said darkly. The words hit hard. Robert's hand shook. She told me she wanted to keep it, he hissed. I begged her to leave town. I gave her choices, but she wanted to ruin me. No. Magnus said. She just wanted to live. You think you're her hero? Robert laughed hard. He made a decision. No matter what the judge said, no matter what the town wanted, Elena Marsh wasn't leaving. Not now, not ever. He just had to figure out how to make her stay. The letter arrived 3 days later. Sheriff Brennan delivered it himself, his expression serious. He handed it to Wyatt, then tipped his hat to Elena, who stood nearby. Wyatt unfolded the paper and read silently, his jaw tightening. When he finished, he looked at Elena. What is it? She asked. He handed her the letter. It was from the county inspector. An official investigation had been completed. The fire was caused by bad wiring installed by a contractor who'd cut corners. It had started in the walls, spreading too fast to stop. No evidence of arson. No evidence of foul play. Elena Marsh was innocent. Officially, legally, completely innocent. The paper slipped from her fingers. She pressed her hands to her face, shoulders shaking. They knew, she whispered. They knew there was no proof, but they blamed me anyway. I'm sorry, Wyatt said. Elena looked up. For what? For believing them. For treating you like you were guilty. You were protecting your daughter. That's not an excuse. He ran a hand through his hair. I was cruel. I judged you without knowing you. And I was wrong. It doesn't matter now. The letter clears my name, but it won't bring back what I lost. No, but it means you can start over. Where? She gestured bitterly. I have no money, no family, nowhere to go. In 2 days, my time here is up. Before Wyatt could respond, the barn door swung open. Lahi came running out. Miss Elena, I finished the book. She threw herself into Elena's arms. Elena pulled her close, managing a trembling smile. I'm so proud of you. Lahi pulled back. Why are you crying? Are you sad? Elena glanced at Wyatt, just a little overwhelmed. Lahi's face grew serious. You're not leaving, are you? Elena's throat closed. Lahi's eyes filled with tears. You're just her next mistake. She'll turn on you too, once. She sees. Sees what? Elena's voice came from behind him. Both men turned. She stood. Barefoot in the rain, burgundy dress soaked, her locket glowing softly against her chest. Her hand gripped the door frame for balance. The other held her belly behind her. Beth stayed close like a shadow, ready to catch her if she fell. Robert's face fell. Elena, go. Inside. No. His voice softened, eyes moving between her and the gun in his hand. I know you're scared, but we can fix this. I'll claim the child. We'll leave. Start over. You'll claim it, she said sharply. You left me to rot. You let my father throw me away. And now you want praise for what you tried to erase. I was trying to protect my family. I am your family, she cried. And you broke me. Robert's hand dropped a little. The gun pointed down. That's when Magnus moved fast, quiet. One gloved hand grabbed Robert's wrist. The gun fell to the porch. The other hand closed around Robert's collar and pulled him forward until they were nose to nose. "If you ever come near her again," Magnus growled, voice cold as mountain ice, "I won't stop at warnings." Robert did not fight. He just nodded, eyes wide and out of breath. Magnus let go. Robert fell back, grabbed the gun with shaking fingers, and turned to run down the muddy road, slipping as he went. Elena fell into Beth's arms, but she was smiling. 3 hours later, Elena gave her last push with a scream to the wooden beams of the bedroom ceiling. Magnus stood at the doorway, jaw tight, helpless. Then, a baby cried. Not loud, not weak. Alive. Beth held up the tiny baby, already wrapping it in a soft cloth. "It's a boy," she said, voice shaking. Elena sobbed, reaching out. "Give him to me." The moment her son touched her arms, something old and complete washed over her. His hair was dark, his skin warm and perfect, his cry already fading into soft hiccups. She kissed his wet forehead. Wyatt, just a little overwhelmed. Lahi's face grew serious. "You're not leaving, are you?" Elena's throat closed. Lahi's eyes filled with tears. "Please don't go. I need you, Lahi. I don't want another teacher. I want you." Her voice rose. "You make me feel safe. You make me happy. You're like my mama." Elena's heart shattered. She pulled Lahi close, tears falling freely. "Oh, sweetheart. Don't leave me." Lahi sobbed. "Please. I love you." Wyatt stood frozen, watching his daughter cling to the woman he tried so hard to keep at a distance. "She's not leaving," Wyatt said, his voice firm. Both looked up at him, shocked. "What?" Elena whispered. Wyatt knelt beside them. "You're not leaving. Not unless you want to." "Wyatt, I can't just." "Yes, you can. Teach the children live here." He paused. "Let us be the family you lost." Elena stared at him. "You don't mean that." "I do." He reached out, his hand covering hers. "I was wrong about you. I've been wrong about a lot of things, but I know this. My daughter loves you, and I don't want you to go either." Tears streamed down Elena's face. "I'm not looking for charity. This isn't charity. This is me asking you to stay because we need you. Because I need you." Lahi looked between them, eyes wide. "Does that mean Miss Elena is staying?" Wyatt smiled faintly. "If she says yes." Elena looked at the little girl in her arms, at the man kneeling with his heart in his eyes, at the ranch that had become home. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll stay." Lahi threw her arms around both of them, laughing through tears. "You're staying. You're really staying." And for the first time since the fire, Elena believed she could be happy again. Later that evening, as the sun set, Lahi stood between them, holding both their hands. "Miss Elena." "Yes, sweetheart." Lahi looked up with serious eyes. "Can I call you Mama?" Elena's breath caught. She glanced at Wyatt, who nodded. She knelt, cupping Lahi's face. "I would be honored." Lahi smiled, the first real full smile Elena had seen. Beth turned to Magnus, who stood frozen like a man not sure whether to step or kneel. "You're allowed to come in now." He stepped forward like the floor might break under him. And when he saw Elena, pale and shining, holding her child with eyes like quiet fire, his chest rose once fast. He dropped to his knees beside her. "He's beautiful," Magnus whispered. "He's strong," she replied. He reached out, stopped. "May I?" She nodded. He placed one huge hand on the child's back. Just 2 fingers covered most of it. But his touch was so gentle, it did not even move the baby's breath. "I never thought I'd see this day," Elena whispered. "That I'd live long enough to be someone's mother." Magnus looked at her, steel blue eyes soft. "You were always a mother," he said. "You were just waiting for the world to catch up." In the weeks that followed, the safe place changed. Not a lot, but a little. The porch had laughter now. The women worked side by side with light steps. Elena painted again, holding the baby close in a cloth sling. He slept through brush strokes and the smell of turpentine as if he had always belonged. The other women started asking for pictures, not of their old lives, but their new ones. Smiles with sunlit hair, hands holding garden tools, not wedding veils, eyes that told stories. Magnus added a room to the house. Then a second. Sarah began teaching others to read. Marie took over kitchen work and added herbs to every meal because it reminds us we're still alive. Beth started writing letters, not to her old husband, but to other women. Women she knew needed a safe place. The family was growing. One quiet afternoon, Magnus joined Elena on the back porch. She was painting again, the baby asleep on her chest. She did not speak right away. She just handed him the picture. It was a picture of the ranch, but in the front there was a tall man with kind eyes and a woman in a burgundy dress holding a baby. No masks, no lies, just truth. "Mama," she whispered, then louder. "Mama." Elena pulled her close, her heart so full it hurt. Wyatt stood behind them, his hand resting gently on Elena's shoulder. This broken, beautiful family was exactly what they all needed to heal. 3 months later, the town gathered for the Autumn Harvest Festival. Elena stood at the edge of the crowd, Lahi's hand in hers, watching families dance and laugh under lanterns strung between the trees. She'd come because Lahi had begged. But part of her still felt the weight of their stares. The same women who'd mocked her, the same men who'd laughed. Then Wyatt appeared beside her, his hand warm on the small of her back. "Come with me," he said quietly. "Where?" "You'll see." He led her through the crowd toward the center of the festival where a wooden platform stood. The band stopped playing. Conversations faded. Everyone turned to watch. Elena's heart pounded. "Wyatt, what are you doing?" He climbed onto the platform and reached down, offering his hand. She hesitated, then took it, letting him pull her up beside him. The crowd stared. Whispers began. Wyatt's voice rang out strong and clear. "Most of you know Elena Marsh. Some of you have spoken cruel words about her. Some of you believed lies. Some of you treated her like she didn't deserve to stand among you." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. 3 months ago, she came to my ranch accused of a crime she didn't commit. I believed the worst about her. I was wrong. He turned to Elena, his eyes steady. He looked at her, not sure of what to say. So she said it for him. "You built the walls to keep women safe." Elena whispered. "But you let me build a home inside them." He smiled. "I did not keep you. You stayed." "I know," she said softly. "That's what makes it real." He reached into his vest pocket, pulled out a tiny gold ring, the same one she had worn as a lie. Only now, he held it like a question. She looked up at him, eyes full of tears. "I thought I was not anyone's to protect," she said. "You're not," Magnus replied. "Then what am I?" "You're mine," he whispered. "And I'm yours." She reached for his hand, and this time when she wore the ring, it meant something true. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe Ironwood Narratives. We share powerful tales of love, courage, and second chances. She taught my daughter to read. She taught her to hope again. She brought light back into a house that had been dark for too long. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Wyatt reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple gold ring. Gasps rippled through the crowd. He took Elena's hand, his voice dropping, but still loud enough for everyone to hear. "Elena Marsh, you've already become a mother to my daughter. And somewhere along the way, you became the only woman I want to spend the rest of my life with." He knelt on one knee. "Will you marry me?" Elena's hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, her voice breaking. "Yes." The crowd erupted. Not in mockery this time. In cheers. Wyatt slipped the ring onto her finger and stood pulling her into his arms. Lahi scrambled onto the platform, throwing her arms around both of them. "Mama's staying forever," she shouted joyfully. Councilman Grayson stood at the back of the crowd, his face dark, but no one was looking at him anymore. They were looking at Elena Marsh, the woman they tried to destroy, the woman who'd won.